So this tactic of spiritual manipulation to convince rank and file Christians to get on board with a variety of progressive agenda items isn't something new, but we certainly saw it very prominently during the pandemic. So in that case, of course, they argued that loving your neighbor meant things like wearing masks, shutting down churches, getting an experimental genetic vaccine. And the point was that if you resisted these things, you weren't just disagreeing on a scientific level, you weren't just disagreeing on a political point, you were rebelling spiritually. And that was something that we saw very prominent pastors like Rick Warren of Saddleback Church argue. Warren exhorted Christians in one particular interview with Collins, wearing a mask is the great commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. Maybe even a little more pointed, Ed Stetzer, who is the director of the Billy Graham Center at Wheaton College, he had some very pointed chastising for anyone who questioned things like whether the virus could have escaped from a Chinese lab in Wuhan. He said that they needed to repent for spreading conspiracy theories. And I'm just going to quote this one. Consider taking Christian off their social media profiles so the rest of us don't have to share in the embarrassment. Some of the people that Collins and his friends never talked about when they were discussing loving the least of these through the pandemic. They never talked about the small business owners who were forced to close their doors due to lockdowns and mandates. They never talked about the children who fell behind in schooling because they were kept home, or the developmental. Are these people our neighbors too? Do we need to think about how we're loving them when we consider embracing these policy prescriptions?